and here's our agenda for today. We'll be going over GBA plus history, kind of what GBA plus is and intersectionality, how it relates to the newcomer serving sector, a bit of the project overview that I was part of, the goals and processes. We'll hear from insights from our pilot SPOs who were a part of this project as well and a core piece of this project. We'll also get into the National Resource Guide, and we'll have some time at the end for some questions. A little bit of housekeeping also before we get started. There is interpretation services available. So if you click the little globe on the bottom of the screen, you can select the language that you'd like to hear. We have French and English available, and the meeting will also be recorded today. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and get started with the quick history of GBA+. So there are kind of three buckets with GBA+ that fall into the history. So first, they're setting the stage between 1970 and 1995. So here, the Fourth United Nations World Conference on Women was held in Beijing in September 1995. At the Beijing Platform for Action is what it was called. Member countries adopted a program aimed at accelerating progress toward equality between men and women. This platform here flagged 12 key areas where urgent action was needed to ensure greater equality and opportunities for women and men. Following the Beijing Platform for Action was a second bucket here, which is making commitments between 1995 and 2002. So following the Beijing Platform for Action, gender-based analysis became a key part of the 1995 Federal Plan for Gender Equality. This meant conducting GBA on all future legislation, policies, and programs. AGE, which is Agenda for Gender Equality, was a 5-year government-wide strategy to accelerate the implementation of gender-based analysis in policies and programs. And moving on to the third bucket, building accountability, was between 2003 and present day. So once GBA became more mainstream, it was important to establish policies and mechanisms to coordinate and monitor the use of GBA across the government. Women and Gender Equality Canada, or WAGE, rebranded GBA to GBA+. The plus was added to encourage consideration of multiple factors that shape experiences and outcomes beyond just sex and gender. So with this rebranding, the GBA+ wheel was introduced, and we'll showcase that in the next slide here. Another part of accountability, this diagram is taken from IRCC's website. All federal officials and organizations have a role to play to ensure that GBA+ leads toward better results for Canadians. GBA+ is a key consideration at all stages of the policy, program, and legislative process. And it's not simply an add-on. We can't just check off a box and say we did GBA+, we did GBA. It's embedded in all legislation, programs, and processes. And here is the GBA+ wheel that I was mentioning. So GBA+ is an analytical tool to support the development of responsive and inclusive initiatives, including policies, programs, and other initiatives. That's the wheel there. So this figure highlights a range of factors, and these are intersecting identity factors that go beyond just sex and gender. We can see religion, income, culture, disability, age, sexual orientation. There's a couple things that are missing on this wheel specific to the sector, like immigrant status, immigration status, nationality, etc. But this is a concept of intersectionality, which is coined by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw. Intersectionality is a framework that helps us understand human beings as being shaped by the interactions of different social locations. So there we have race, gender, sexuality, age, migration status, etc. And these interactions occur within a framework of power systems, so laws, policies, governments, and other political and social systems in our world. Applying GBA+ early in the policy development process ensures that diversity considerations are embedded in that decision-making process, allowing for responsive and inclusive initiatives that meet the needs of diverse groups of people. And we can do this in our sector as well. It's not just for government officials, it's not just for policies, it's not just for laws. This can be applied at anywhere. So GBA+ in the newcomer serving sector. This project aligns, the project title is Enhancing National Gender-Based Analysis Plus Capacity Project. It's a mouthful. It aligns with the federal initiative to continue to enhance GBA+ in different departments and sectors. So by applying a national approach to mainstreaming gender equality and GBA+ within our sector, there's greater opportunity to align efforts and amplify consistent messaging across the country. So a little bit of this project overview. The project brought staff teams from 7 different umbrella organizations across the country to collaborate on strengthening the newcomer serving sector and its ability to integrate GBA Plus in programs, policies, and practices. To achieve this, tools and resources were developed and piloted with selected service providing organizations in each province, ensuring that their practicality and effectiveness were applicable in real world situations. So the different umbrella organizations that we worked with was AMSA, ASA, myself, SEISHA, MANSO, OCASI, FCFA is a Francophone umbrella, and ERASA, which is the Maritimes umbrella. Oh, sorry. And the project goal was to test an approach to enhance the capacity of project partners to mainstream gender equality within their own organizations. We can kind of amplify this, mainstream it within our sector, not just have it live in government level. So a little bit of our project process here. So we had a national team that comprised of research leads and project leads. So research leads were performed an environmental scan and a literature review on GBA+, kind of where it exists. Are there gaps? Are there opportunities in our sector to be able to amplify our capacities in embedding GBA+ in our programs and policies? They also had interviews with a few SPOs across each province, and they analyzed their findings and reports into a final report, which will be available soon. So the research leads identified key gaps, strengths, and opportunities to establish a foundation from which we can assess knowledge and capacity and enhancement. Each assessment identified potential avenues to effectively mainstream GBA+ within organizational policies and programs and practices. The project leads, on the other hand, conducted an internal needs assessment. So internally in the organization that they were in, provided an internal needs assessment. So they looked at the human resources manual, their policies, and saw if there was room for opportunities and growth there. After that, they were able to build tools and resources. So each province, each SPO was able to collect and build tools of resources based off the research that the research leads did, along with the internal needs assessment performed within their organizations. And then the project leads each partnered with 2 SPOs in their province to test and pilot the tools and provide feedback. So the pilots joined in March and provided feedback on these tools that were developed up until September. So ASA partnered with Making Changes and Town of Banff, Settlement Services of the Bow Valley, and we have both of them here today to speak on the process and how the process was for them, how the project was for them, and we'll hear from them later on today. So with the help of both Making Changes and Settlement Services in the Bow Valley, we were able to test all the resources. I think there was 5 resources that we tested together. And we implemented the feedback that was given by both Shalza and Heather from these 2 organizations, and compiled these resources into a national resource guide that will soon also be shared on each umbrella's website. So like I said, the pilot SPOs, service providing organizations, piloted 5 resources. So they piloted 2 GBA plus PD courses. The 2 courses were an introduction to gender-based analysis and organizational capacity building through a GBA plus lens. These courses you might have been enrolled in them already and may be in them right now. They are on our website as well. And ASA is exploring offering these courses in the future, so stay tuned for that. The SPOs also piloted a GBA plus capacity starter kit. This resources was later developed into 2 separate tools, a case studies and a reflection exercise tool, and we'll get into that in a little bit here as well. They also piloted a tool called a staff survey, GBA plus staff survey tool. It included guidelines for how to conduct a staff survey, how to do safe data collection. It included the purpose of the staff survey, along with a template for SPOs to create their own staff survey. We also conducted a pilot on case studies in action that was originally part of the starter kit, but eventually branched out into its own sort of tool. And we'll be showcasing this tool in the next slide, actually. And then lastly, they both piloted the GBA Plus interactive activity. It's an activity where staff and clients can participate in to better understand GBA Plus through sort of a role play scenario. And I think Shalza and Heather will talk about this activity as well. So with the help of Shalza and Heather, along with the feedback from a couple of other SPOs, like I mentioned, we were able to take real life examples of applying GBA Plus lens in programs, evaluation, and policies. And we conducted this tool here called Case Studies in Action, strengthening programs and policies with GBA Plus and intersectionality. So it's a case study template. So in this tool, there are 7 case studies in total that Shalza and Heather, along with the other SPOs, helped to create. Each case study having their own unique challenge and process to develop solutions. And at the end of the document, readers get a chance to put their GBA Plus knowledge into practice. So I'll showcase, this is one of the tools that we have that will be on the National Resource Guide. So we start off with, oh, sorry, my mouse is not working here. There we go. Each tool will have sort of its table of contents, and you can kind of go through which case study you would like to read. If there are some that maybe resonate with you more than others, you can see here the first one is empowering women in digital literacy programs. Then the next case study is for older adults in digital literacy in a rural context. So you can kind of select if you're a small center, if you work with older adults, if you work with women. The third one is outreach and program registration for vulnerable senior newcomers, again, seniors. Systemic resources, challenges in small centers for newcomer families with children and disabilities. And then this is the section in programs and services. Next, we have program evaluation, one case study there with youth programming feedback. And then we have policies and practices. And those are our 2 last case studies with diversifying leadership and enhancing organizational policy for inclusivity. So a bit of an overview. I'm scrolling quite fast, but I just want to showcase kind of one case study here. So each case study will have context and background. So kind of what the program is, who the target population is, the identified gap, the main challenge and barriers in this particular program, and then how we can use a GBA Plus analysis lens in this particular case, what the solution development is, some lessons learned. And each case study will also have reflection questions for the reader to kind of think about if you're implementing a program like this, or if you're implementing a new program, kind of what additional supports might be needed, how can similar approaches be applied. So each case study is kind of catered to that. So each case study has their own reflection questions specific to that case study. And then lastly, sorry, I know I'm scrolling quite fast. Sorry for your eyes. Again, challenge, overview, reflection questions, challenge, response, overview, reflection questions. And then lastly, you kind of build your own case study. So if you're implementing a new policy, if you're implementing a new program, or want to modify an existing program, these are some questions to help you think about how you can use GBA Plus lens in implementing the program, assessing a program, evaluating a program, looking into your organizational policies, and maybe what feedback might be needed, what changes might be needed, considerations to take to help improve this equity sort of lens in your organization and in its internal and external programs and services. So yeah, this is one of our documents, and I'm super thankful for Shalza and Heather to be part of this and help create this document. I think it'll be really useful across the sector and hopefully for you as well, folks watching here. So yeah, this is one of our resources that will be on the National Resource Guide, which unfortunately is not ready to be shared on the website yet, but will be very soon. So I'd just like to turn the tables and hear from our SPOs next. Let me just see here. Just want to thank you both again for dedicating your time and your expertise and your passion to this project. Enhancing GBA Plus in our sector and in our lives is really important to help dedicate equality and equity to our newcomer clients. And just wanted to thank you both again for being part of this project. It's really awesome to have your support and your passion here, and I really couldn't have done this without you. So if I could just have you both introduce yourselves. Sorry, I can't see here. Yeah, I'm not sure who wants to start, but you can just introduce yourself, who you are, kind of where you're from. Shalza?
Go ahead, Shaza.
Thank you. My name is Shaza Visram. I work for Making Changes Employment Association of Alberta, which is located in Calgary. We are mainly a women's organization. We have some clothing programs for women transitioning back into the workforce, low income and newcomer women, immigrant women, and then also teenage girls for them to also get clothing and stuff to go to school. So the main reason for the closet programs is to build confidence in the women so that they can actively participate in the community. And then we have some employment training programs. I am the manager of our Women in Technology program. It's a full stack web development program for mostly international trained professionals who are looking to transition into a new career or need to upgrade their skills in IT to join the workforce. And then we have ELS program, which is really job readiness. And then we have a new program that just started, which is WEDO. So it's empowering women through digital literacy. So it's all about computer skills and stuff like that. But all of these programs are designed to give women a hand up instead of a hand out to be able to be successful in the community. So GBA Plus was a really excellent project for me to work on, specifically because I have an HR and a policy studies background. And it's really important for our values to think about gender equality and all of that when we're doing our work. So thank you so much, Crystal. Really appreciated working with you and Heather.
Of course. Thank you so much, Shalza, for that overview and introduction. And yeah, again, your time. Heather, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how grateful we are to have had this opportunity. I'm Heather Bates. I work with settlement services in the Bow Valley. We are funded to provide support and resources and activities to permanent residents, refugees, and Kuwait visa holders throughout the Bow Valley. So we are housed within the town of Banff. The town of Banff is our fiscal agent, but our program is Bow Valley wide. And we work with folks across the lifespan at various stages of their settlement and immigration journey. We've actually got quite a few team members from settlement services in the Bow Valley on the call today, so that's great to see. We have various streams of programming from one-on-one information and orientation to group sessions, to settlement work in schools, to community connections activities, and to working with other service providers and employers in the area in order to remove barriers to access for important community resources. And essentially, as Shaza said, really it's that hand up. It's moving folks from maybe doing things with them, for them if necessary, to cheering them on as they navigate their settlement journey. And so again, it couldn't be more relevant for our team to have had the opportunity to work with Crystal, with the team, to pilot some of these resources and to really take a deeper dive into how we can apply GBA Plus, not just once, not just at the start of something, but as an ongoing process throughout our work with everyone involved. So again, thank you.
Thanks so much, Heather. Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head. It's not just a one time at the beginning of a process, at the beginning of a program, but it's an ongoing process. You can't just check a box and say done. So, and I think you both knew that and learned that more testing all these tools. So thank you again so much. So I'll ask questions to both of you and we'll kind of take some turns answering here. So we'll start off with you, Heather. Did you have any aha moments while you were piloting the tools that we tested out together?
We had many. I mean, and I had many certainly, and I think our team did as well. One that I highlighted was actually just sort of almost a self-reflection piece in that we were completing the interactive activity that looks at women in the workplace in 2022, I believe is the year that it's looking at. But one of the rounds of this interactive activity talks about overrepresentation of women in helping roles. And of course, we are in helping roles within settlement services. And if you looked around the table, we had 9 women participating in the activity and our 1 male colleague. And so it was sort of this aha moment that even though we are in the process of ongoing process of implementing GBA Plus and did do the staff survey and have done a lot of reflection, that the composition of our team speaks true to what that particular activity was trying to communicate.
That's a brilliant aha moment, looking around the table and seeing. Awesome. Thank you so much. Shalza, did you have anything else to add for that question?
Yeah, I actually had 2 aha moments. One was more so about the fact that we are doing a lot of work in the community for GBA Plus already, but just really understanding where we're at currently. So the most impactful was understanding the difference between equality, equity, and justice. And I really like that example that we have about the tree with the apples on it. And it's not about just making sure that our clients have access to the apples, but do they have the right size of a ladder to reach those apples? Like, are we making sure that we are looking at not just equality, but equity and justice in accessing a program? So oftentimes we create programs and services that we think will help everyone, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And we need to meet our clients where they're at and use a client-centered approach to understanding individual lived experiences and individual barriers of intersectionality that can impact their ability to fully participate in programming and successfully leverage services. So that was a really important thing to understand. Just because we have a program in place doesn't mean that we're like, it's going to be good for everyone. So like, how can we make sure that the individual clients we're serving are actually benefiting from those programs? So that is something we are going to take a deeper dive into even moving forward. And the second thing was when I did the interactive activity, which was all about feminism, I had a lot of aha moments. I didn't realize that women were still being discriminated against in Canada in the workplace. And up till recently, there was in a country that I felt was so progressive, there's still like a lot of things that are going on. For example, I didn't know that until 1978, the federal government code was not introduced, like it was amended to make sure that pregnancy wasn't a basis for layoff. So before 1978, you could be laid off for just being pregnant. So that's like not really long ago. So that surprised me a lot. So I think that we just need to continue to empower our women and other individuals in society who are facing these barriers, like racialized minorities, people with disabilities, LGBTQ+. Any of those targeted populations that are facing more discrimination, we need to like really focus on how can we shift the pendulum even more to get them support. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shalza. You highlighted a few awesome points. Equity is different than equality. As we know, if you give somebody a ladder to reach, at the same size ladder to reach an apple tree, but people have different heights, and it's not going to help them if they have, a different length of an arm and they can't reach the apple. So you have to adjust the ladder. And that's what equity is really adjusting the ladder, adjusting the principles and the policies and the programs to be able to have people meet their needs. So you really hit the nail on the head with that one. And yeah, there is still work to be done. As you mentioned, women were able to get laid off in the 70s, which is not too long ago, just for being pregnant. And that's, in our lifetime. So there's always room to improve. Let me just switch my screen here. The second question, Shalza, if you could share what your experience was like using the GBA Plus resources in your organization. I know you talked about this a little bit, but yeah. Sorry, Shalza, you're still muted there.
So sorry, I didn't realize
That's
that I muted
okay,
again.
no worries.
Using the GBA Plus resources within our organization has enabled our staff to get a better understanding and awareness of clients through a lens of intersectionality, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So really, understanding that there can be multiple factors within a person. So one of the key things that really resonated with me is that women, especially in the tech sector, which is male dominant, there is barriers for women and for entry for women in that sector. But then if you're a woman and then you have something else like a disability or you're a racialized minority, you have a double factor impacting you. So that is something that we need to truly look into in more detail, and how can we work with the individuals, meet with them where they are, and then make sure that they're getting the right support and advocacy with employers to be successful. So we will continue to adapt our internal policies and procedures to ensure that Making Changes Association is truly living by its values of compassion, respect, belonging, self-worth, and possibility. We can take a client-centered approach to help giving women opportunities through effective delivery and evaluation of our programs and services. So to really make sure we're meeting the mandate of GBA+.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shalza. Yeah, thinking of that intersectionality piece and that wheel of intersectionality that I showcased at the beginning, kind of those intersecting factors. Not only is this client a woman, but this client is a woman who's racialized minority, who has a disability, who has undergone trauma in her home country. So thinking of those intersecting factors and how you can kind of help those clients that may be missed, Heather, did you have anything else to add?
I would echo much of what Shazza said, so I think we can move on to, yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Let me switch my screen here. Alrighty, Heather, have you been able to apply any concepts or practices from the resources you piloted in your work at Settlement Services in the Bow Valley?
Certainly. I think the one example that I had provided when Crystal and I were chatting about this before today, I think sometimes with GBA+, it can feel very big, and it can feel almost daunting to think, where do we start? Or, are we doing this right? And I think, there's just so many small but really large examples I can think of where GBA+ is being applied, and it almost becomes, and I think this is the intention, rote. It's routine. It's not a conscious, okay, now we're going to do the GBA+ analysis here. This is part of how we do our work. And so the one example I had provided is that we were organizing a community connections event for our Japanese community members of varying ages. And so looking at how different individuals that we were targeting for this event might access information about it. So looking at digital literacy, looking at age, looking at comfort level with culturally attending or approaching a different experience that they might not have had before. And so as we were looking at registration for that, and it was not great at first, and then we applied GBA+ to our thought process even more consciously, to say, okay, what are we maybe missing here around barriers to access? And we ended up having an incredibly well-attended event. And I could just see that the practices that we were putting in place were reflective of the learning that we'd done with GBA+, and we're also, we're working. So that was sort of one example of how we've seen it applied in our work.
That's awesome, thank you. And yeah, just like Shalza mentioned, it's important to think of those intersecting factors, not only for gender, but yeah, other barriers that might be missing when you're not typically thinking of those clients. So Shalza, did you have anything to add there?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we have already done at Making Changes Association is really the awareness about why GBA+ is so important. We've been using GBA+ already before this project, but it's just about taking it to the next level. So understanding the reasons why it's important and how it's impactful on individual clients is really, really important. And then so every individual that's working at Making Changes has gone through that introductory courses for GBA+ now. And so that we want to make sure that we are more impactful in our daily work, and we are keeping GBA+ in mind every single day, really.
That's awesome, thank you. I think you make a good point, and it was actually found in the research report that the research leads did in this project was that a lot of folks were already doing GBA work just without knowing that it was called GBA plus. So with that knowledge of what GBA plus is and the insights and the history and why it's important to embed that in your day-to-day work, really just kind of furthers that and embeds that further into your policies, your programs, the principles in what you do and why you do what you do. So thank you for sharing that. It's really important. We have a couple more questions here, so just bear with me. Charles, if you could share, how do you envision other organizations in the sector benefiting from these resources?
So the resources that we explored through through the GBA Plus project were very comprehensive and informative, particularly the case studies, definitions, and videos that shared scenarios and real life examples of how intersectionality and inequality impacts immigrants on a daily basis. So really, like I said, we've been working with GBA concepts already in our organizations, but really looking at it in a more through a client-centered lens, through those lived experiences, through those scenarios, real life examples, to kind of like get more insights of how can we become better at this. This will enable service providers to get a clear understanding of the importance of EDI initiatives, and service providers can leverage GBA Plus to become better advocates within the community, particularly with employers. Because we've, as part of our program for women in technology, we have a WIT advisory committee of energy companies and finance companies, as well as the IT companies. A lot of them, like as we talk to them in our quarterly meetings, we see that they have biases towards immigrants. A lot of them still think that, immigrants don't speak really good English and stuff like that. So it's really about creating awareness, getting rid of those ignorances, and giving examples of why things are the way they are.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. And I'm sure other SPOs work with similar clients or work with employers or other folks who might have those same stereotypes or biases towards newcomers. It's not particular just to making changes. So having that seed planted and that knowledge in the back of your mind or in your toolbox just really helps to help embed that and yeah, just help increase equity in our sector. Heather, did you have anything to add there?
I think I touched on a few of the things that Shelza had said as well. It's just really that idea of it, expanding knowledge, challenging biases, providing these new perspectives. An organization may already be engaging in GBA plus and not recognize what they've been doing or how they could expand upon that. And I think also within this sector, GBA plus is probably more at the forefront of work than other sectors, but our sector doesn't work in silos, right? So just, as Shelza was saying, in our engagement with other organizations outside our sector, the value of being able to provide that GBA plus knowledge and insight, I think can go a long way in terms of helping our clients or individuals that we're working with navigate their way through sectors outside of ours as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Nothing lives in a vacuum, so it's important to know that. And this is similar to this question, but lastly, since we have other SPOs here, Heather, if you'd like to start, what advice would you like to offer other SPOs looking to integrate GBA Plus into their work, into their programs and policies and their principles?
And I sort of touched on it before too, and I think it really is, it can feel daunting. I think taking a pause and reflecting on where you've already been using GBA plus analysis in your programming is a great place to start, because it kind of says, oh, you know what, we're already doing this. Let's see what more we can learn and what more we can apply. And my message was simply to just start. It doesn't need to be perfect now or ever. It's a process, and just one step in the right direction is all it takes to begin or enhance integration of GBA plus. So there's going to be this incredible resource available. Using that, implementing it, and celebrating those small wins, and being reflective, so that as you say, hey, here's GBA Plus in action, and this is the benefit that we're seeing. Recording that, because we don't always remember, where we started and where we are. But I think recording our successes along the way and being reflective about it is a great place to start and to continue.
Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah, as different organizations start their journey or continue or enhance their journey on GBA Plus, it's important to recognize those little milestones and take a look at where you are and how much progress you've made already. So thank you so much. And Shalza, anything to add for that question there?
Yeah, I echo with what Heather said. It's really important not to get overwhelmed, because GBA Plus is so broad. And I mean, no matter how much work you do, you'll never feel like you've completed everything. But like really celebrating those small successes and looking at your trajectory of the future as well as of the past, how much you've accomplished, where you need to go, is really important. And I think the best place to start is actually the organizational staff survey. So kind of making sure that everyone's on the same page, because working in different programming, you may be working in silos at times, although you communicate. So you may think that you're more further in the GBA Plus initiatives than other members in your organization. So really having the surveys done on an individual basis and then collectively looking at them to see overall where everybody is at. And then those surveys are really good because it kind of gives you the next steps. So if your organization, wherever you're at, it will tell you, okay, how do you improve? How do you get to the next level? So, kind of individually finding out where you're at and then where you can move forward, and using the survey for that would be really good.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Shalza. Yeah, you bring up a good point. The survey is a really good resource. I know we've only tested 5 resources, and I believe there's 21 in total, I guess, both in English and French, so 42 in total. But yeah, the resource guide, I will share a little bit about that in the next slide here, and it'll be kind of in 2 different foundational principles where you can kind of select where you are in a GBA Plus journey. I want to say the survey is a really great way to start, also because it's an internal procedure. I know we have a lot of surveys in our sector, but this is really, it's not to report to anybody, it's just for your organization to see where you're at, see where you can improve, and yeah, take it from there. Heather and Shalza, these are all the questions I have for you today. Thank you so much for sharing again your insights, your time, and passion in this project. I really, really appreciate everything that you've done. Stick around though in case there are some questions at the end. Thanks so much. All right, moving right along here. Just a second. So I was chatting a little bit about the National Resource Guide, and Heather and Shalza shared as well. Excuse me, just a second here. So the National Resource Guide, all the tools that were developed across the country throughout this project, all the tools and resources and the PD courses have been compiled into something called a National Resource Guide. It's a bilingual guide, and it provides accessible, practical references for SPOs to integrate into their programs and their policies and their principles. So the guide invites organizations to enhance their capacity for equity by applying GBA Plus principles. It offers solutions and strategies, and as you saw in the case studies sample there, that's one of the tools that's going to be in this resource guide. It provides actionable strategies for those in the sector to go beyond just theoretical discussions, and you can actively implement equitable practices in your everyday work with the use and the help of these resources. So the guide will actually be split into 2 different sections to improve searchability and accessibility. The first section is foundational GBA Plus knowledge. Sorry, one second here. I have it here. GBA Plus knowledge. This is designed to help strengthen your understanding of GBA Plus and intersectionality and how to apply these concepts within the newcomer serving sector. So it's really just foundational knowledge. What is GBA Plus? How can I integrate it in the sector? How can I integrate it with my clients, with my staff in my organization? So it's really just kind of a starting point to get that basis of knowledge. This section of the guide includes the GBA Plus PD courses that I mentioned earlier. as well as the interactive activity that Heather and Shalza talked about earlier. The next bucket or section that the National Resource Guide is split into is organizational strategies for implementing GBA+. So this section includes templates and resources to support leadership, so a leadership team, in identifying gaps and opportunities, and it equips leaders with the knowledge and strategies needed to foster a more equitable and inclusive workplace. So this is really kind of dedicated to upper management, EDs, and just seeing how you can implement these strategies in your workplace. And this section includes the case studies sample that I showcased earlier. So I just want to talk a little bit about the National Resource Guide layout. Unfortunately, I don't have it to show it to you, but I can just kind of briefly say that throughout the resource guide, you'll see under each resource, so there's 21, like I mentioned, 21 in English, 21 in French. With each resource, there will be sort of an audience. So who is this resource useful for? Is it for EDs? Is it for upper and middle management, frontline workers? Who is it useful for? So you can kind of skim through and see, am I part of this? Is this going to be helpful for me? It'll also include a duration. So how long will this activity take? How long, if it'll be, 2 hours, if it's a course, it'll be spread out throughout, a couple months. If it's half an hour, kind of what's needed to be able to partake in this resource. And then it'll just give you a little bit of a summary of a resource. So you'll be able to kind of skim through and see, pick and choose which resources you want to start off with, which resources are useful for you in your organization, which resources might not be so useful for you. It's kind of catered to the sector, which is why we had two SPOs involved in this, so we can have kind of a frontline practical eye on the resources. We chose, like I said, Shalza and Heather. Heather is Settlement Services in the Bow Valley, and it's a small center, so we have two perspectives. Each umbrella, like I said, chose two SPOs. One is sort of an urban SPO, and then the other one mostly was a small center. So we have kind of that knowledge as well and lens on the resources. And lastly, I just wanted to talk about ASA's landing page for GBA+. So I will share my screen here again. So if you go on ASA's website under research, you can see the project title here, Enhancing National Gender-Based Analysis Plus Capacity Project. It is a long title, but this is the one. Again, it just gives you an overview of what the project is. Talks about our project partners. Here is a website, links to making changes in settlement services in the Bow Valley as they were our pilot SPOs. This is where the National Resource Guide will live once it's eventually finished being drafted up. You know how it is with graphic designers going back and forth and these finishing touches, but it will be up here shortly. So it talks about, what the resource guide is, why it's needed, which I highlighted before. And this is where you'll find the resource guide. And then at the bottom of the website, we have some additional resources from the Wheel of Privilege and Power that I showed earlier. There's a GBA Plus course that's offered through WAGE, Women in Gender Equity Canada. And then there's a few other resources that you can click on just to learn more about GBA Plus in the meantime. So stay tuned for that. We'll also share, I think Celine maybe already shared, but we will be sharing the link to the website in the chat here shortly as well. Oh, sorry. I have too many slides here. That wraps up my presentation for today. I know we're ending quite early. I just wanted to leave a lot of room for questions in case there were any. So if folks have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. You can also just raise your hand and ask straight away like this. Hope I covered everything. There's a lot of knowledge here and a lot of expertise, so thanks for bearing with me. But yeah, at this point, does anybody have any questions for myself or Shalza or Heather? Maybe I'll give folks a couple minutes just in case. If not, this meeting is going to end quite early, but let's see here. I don't think there are any questions.
Maybe I'll just throw out there that, as organizations are beginning to implement these resources, and I'm sure the same would be for Shalza, but I won't speak for her, but I'm personally happy and our team happy to be a resource, and I'm sure our contact information will be available, and just to answer questions about our experiences or suggestions for implementation of some of the different tools that are there.
Thanks so much, Heather. You are a rock star. Thanks for saying that, and yeah, just being kind of a mentor here while folks begin to implement some of these tools. Lynn, I see your hand up. Go ahead. Sorry, I can't hear you very well. It's kind of muffled. No worries. Oh yeah, I see you're gonna type it. I see some comments here in the chat. No questions, just excited to see the guide. Thank you. And we'll just wait for Lynn's question here. If folks do have any questions along the way, you can always feel free to email me as well. Lynn is asking, will there be further follow-up regarding evaluation? How are organizations implementing this? There won't be further follow-up from project leads or the project itself. It's really just kind of organization's journey on how they implement GBA+. We will be here as a resource, as mentors if you need anything, but the GBA+ capacity project, the national project, is actually ending at the end of November. So yeah, there's not really any sort of monitoring or surveying or anything like that from us or IRCC, as far as I know. Yeah, it's just kind of for you to implement in your own policies and programs. I hope that answers that.
I'm
Shalza,
pretty
go ahead.
sure it would be very good for you to mention that you're working on the GBA+ stuff in your quarterly or annual reports to IRCC, because I know that they look at those pieces even when they're, you know, issuing funding and all of that kind of stuff. So if you are using those pieces within your organization, it will be a better, well, it will meet the mandate of IRCC, so it will be good for you. Brownie points.
Thanks so much, Shalza. That's a really good point. And I'm not sure if in the future there will be something from IRCC, but as far as I know, on my end, there won't be. So yeah, but yeah, it's smart to kind of implement that or mention that in your annual report for sure. Any other questions, comments? Okay, I don't see any. Thank you all again for joining. I'm sorry that the National Resource Guide is not ready uploaded on the website yet, but as soon as it is, I'll email the folks who attended this meeting today and you'll kind of get first dibs on the resource guide there. When will it be ready? I'm hoping by next week. They did say mid-November, so probably early next week. You'll probably receive an email from me with a link to the webpage there, which will have the guide on there. Oh, I see Bella has raised their hand.
Hi, so I was looking like the recording. Are you going to share the recording with the participants?
Sure, yeah. I think I'll share the recording. I know there was a few people that were not able to attend, so I'll share the recording with those who registered, and we'll look into seeing if we can have it on the website as well, just in case folks want to review this webinar. Thanks, Bella, for that question. For sure, thank you. Oh, I see a comment in the chat here. Mabel from Assist Community Services Center, looking forward to the guideline. Is the National Resource Guide for staff only or clients to see as well? It's actually made for staff. It's curated for service provider organizations. It's not to say you can't share it with anybody if you see it fit. I know for one of the activities, the interactive activity, Shalza actually did this activity with clients. So they were able to do the role playing and be able to experience and learn about GBA+ with this activity. So it is designed for SPOs, but that's not to say if you see it fit in a program, for example, you can definitely use one of the resources in your oh my gosh, my mind is slipping the word. You can use the resources with clients if you see it fit.
And a lot of times these resources are designed as from our lens, like basically from ASA and all of that. But when you're using them in individual organizations, you can always adapt to make it fit and work for you. So if you want to adapt things for clients, you can do that. Just make sure that there's no privacy information in it. That's it.
Yeah, good point, Shalsa. Thank you. Yeah, these tools, resources are not anything for you to follow strictly. They're there as a templates, they're there as guides to help you learn about GBA Plus, to implement it in your policies, in your programs, in your activities, but it's there to help you. It's not, nothing's written in stone. You can change things. The survey, for example, is a template. You can adjust the survey, the staff survey as you see fit. You can take out questions, you can add questions. So they're really there as templates and as resources to help guide you implementing GBA Plus. Sure, no problem. Any other questions before we zip off here? Role as mentor, what might that entail for SPOs? So, okay, sorry, I did mention that the project ends in November, which is just a couple weeks from now. But if you did have any questions about the resources, you can always shoot me an email and I can maybe direct you in the right direction if there are questions on specific resources. As I mentioned, there are umbrella organizations across the country that were part of creating these resources along with the SPOs. So if there are questions about the resources themselves, you can always email me and I can try and guide you towards the right answer. The thing is, some of the umbrella agencies and the project leads might be gone since the project ends in November, but we were all part of creating the resources. So I'm sure there will be a way to help answer the questions if you do have questions while implementing or using the resources. No problem. Alrighty, I see some people logging off now. So if there are any last minute questions here, I'll give maybe another 30 seconds just in case. But I see people saying thank you, thank you. So I'll take that as no more questions. Again, if there are other questions, feel free to email me. My name is Crystal Guzman, and thank you so much for joining today. Thank you again, Heather and Shalza, for all your time and for dedicating so much time to this town hall and the project itself. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Stay tuned for the National Resource Guide. I'll email folks once it's out.